first time ever, a unique thing that we're trying, talking to students on various subjects. So I'd like to talk about you first. What inspired you to go into the field of fashion design?
I think we in those days never sort of casted a destiny for ourselves. We started with lots of ideas and let the sails in the wind of the journey take you where you want. Unfortunately, not like my other colleagues like Rohit and Tarun and a couple of these designers who sketched dolls in their sketchbooks and dressed up little miniature fashion models when they were kids. I actually was studying robotics and electronics. So it's a big departure from where I wanted to go and eventually landed up going.
But coming from a royal family, coming from a very traditional Rajasthan family, did you face any family resistance? Or was there any...
No, my mother's from Sanar, my father was from Mewan. I think the success in my growth curve was really purely the freedom. Not once did I ever have resistance in choosing my own destiny. And I went off to America on my own, and I think was the first of our generation to actually leave and go. And I think it was the fearlessness of being able to do what you want to do, and I think it also builds peer pressure to make sure you perform. So I think every discussion I've had with young students in Delhi and IFT and a couple of other design schools, it's more important to address the parents sometimes to let the dreams flourish, I think. So I think where you come from is not so much as to, but where you want to go, you should know and be able to prove that within the 4 to 5 year span of this journey that one takes at this stage.
Yeah, I was going to say that you're coming from Jodhpur, which is, not a very big town, and especially in those days, and going to compete with people who've been in Delhi or Bombay, who've been already part of the fashion world. Was it difficult coming from a small town? I mean, I know your parents were well educated, you went to the US, English was not an issue. But was it difficult, or do you have a small town mentality, so to say?
Well, I think the most important thing really for me was to be able to build confidence. We were discussing this earlier. I think the important thing is that if you know what your USP is and you can actually flourish within that space, it makes a big difference. I always recommend that you don't really need to do so much of soul searching, as much as actually look within and to see what is it that makes you different from the person next to you and build on those strengths. I think that was the biggest challenge for me, because I had never gone to Delhi or Bombay, went straight to New York. So it was a very the education was what you saw in the movies, and I didn't know how to take a Coke can out of a Coke machine. I mean, I'm being honest. So it was...
You landed in New York with that, and you were trying to figure out where to put the money in, and...
Well, my father said that you've reached there, and if you want to take the next flight out, you've come back. You've done what you were supposed to do. So I think that the pressure of performance today kills the creativity sometimes. And I think the freedom with which you can actually flourish disappears if you're constantly worried about performance. Sometimes you need to just live. And I think that was the biggest learning experience. Because when you live, you learn to, know your lows and highs. You understand your parameters. And you understand how to deal with the world. And you stand on your own feet. I did, for the 6, 7 years that I was in, I studied a lot. I mean, I went to study Greek mythology in Vermont, but I was supporting myself. Everything. So I was, we would scrape old paint off houses and get $9 an hour. 2 of us. The other gentleman was the son of the president of a South American, country. We had a broken down car, but we drove every Sunday, found houses that were in need of paint, and we offered the owners to, let us take a project on, and we collected money for the big education that eventually followed from Vermont into New York. I think sometimes you need to character build away from what your character presently is, and if you're thrown in an environment which is a little hostile, where people don't see you as the first, you see as the third world. I mean, everything, the odds are against you. And then you have to make three ends meet. It's difficult. You have to, education is not cheap at all. So, especially Parsons School of Design, in those days was $23,000. To generate that kind of money by doing extracurricular activity outside was very difficult. But it actually taught us a lot. A couple of us got together and we used to design. And that's where we made the money. And then we went to school, and then we worked. So it was a very complicating process, but truly an experience that...
But it's easy for people like you and me now to say that you should not be worried about the results. You should focus on more on the work. But when you're struggling, or when you were struggling, were your designs not rejected initially by your teachers, by someone you were trying to sell, someone that you were trying to show off? Was there never a rejection in the initial years?
Well, my biggest problem was that I'd never seen a swimming trunk. I mean, I didn't know how to draw it. The first collection assignment was to do a swimming range, and people in Jodhpur used to swim in saris. I remember that as and it was very difficult, but I sketched mine in a chiffon overture. It actually got picked up because it was so different. So I think sometimes your weaknesses become your strength.
Sure.
And yes, I mean, there's a journey. Design is like a game of croquet. You never get an idea that will always be successful. You have to play it, constantly evolve to a point where it is acceptable. The hardest thing in my profession is to be able to create something that somebody else likes. It's unlike any other, it's not a legal, a legal document is a legal document. A doctor always prescribes through a code of conduct. In design, it's a little bit of imposition. It's your idea being implanted into the fashion system. And it's not very easy to be able to sell that until your product is really good. So I think eventually, everything aside, it comes down to your skill. How can you take your idea and create it? And for that you need this tremendous gift of communication, whether it is through sketching, whether it is through writing, whether it's through expressing yourself through various mediums. But the best designers that I have seen, not only in fashion, have been the ones who've been able to cultivate the fluffy idea in their mind into a three-dimensional object. And I think this journey from the idea to the object is the true test of a good design person. And it's very unusual process. It's very different from other professions.
But you said something very nice, where you have to design something for other people, what other people like. I thought a designer or a creative person first created a collection or a theme of a collection for something he was really passionate about or really loved. Don't you think, you would create something that I like, irrespective of whether you like it or not? Would you create that?
Well, the fundamental problem is that finance is the key founding. If you design an outfit for a king, but if it doesn't sell, you're a hopeless designer. So everything actually revolves around economics of design. And generally, if you get the economics right, you tend to get the attraction that object might. We are designing in Jaipur itself. We're working with 3-4 jewelry designers, and we're designing old gold coins for gifting for our brand. And the design is so difficult to do because it is like a broken coin. That whole process and that whole concept is the design team has put together is driven not purely by design, but also by the idea of economics. And at the same time, you need to have something which is not available. You want to give a gift today, you can just go and buy a gold coin and give it, but it's got an Englishman's head on it, or it has something which has nothing to do with you. But take that same thing, you make it into a modern Indian relic, and you have something good. So it's a combination of what you might like, what you might not know you might like, and what are the foundations for economics in it.
Not everyone sitting in this hall will be successful in the field that they are pursuing. A handful of people at Parsons must have achieved what you have achieved. There are quite a few average students when you look across. And I'm sure people who are at Parsons must be working for a multinational or doing something outside of design also. What is it that you want to give a message in terms of people who don't excel or who are not the top 5 or top 10 people in their field?
Well, I think the best judge of your performance is your best friend or your group of friends that you're with. I don't think faculty has the power or the tools to assess where you stand in the class except academically see where you stand. Your best critic is your best friend. They will tell you the truth. And that's where the problem lies. I think if they think they're average, they need to know early. Because if you are an average student in what you're pursuing, you need to shift gears and move left or right and pursue something that is your passion. I think the ultimate discovery is trying to find out what you're really good at and then trying to build around that.
So can we shift gears and go to the fashion industry? Lots of competition, lots of rivalry, lots of jealousy, not only in models but in designers. Lots of people copying each other's, modifying each other's designs. What is your take on that?
I don't think there's anything that needs to be designed. It's all been designed before, so most of us are basically taking something that's been there already, what is successful, and redesigning it. So the case of original design doesn't hold up. In terms of the chaos in the industry, I think that's what makes fashion different. There is mayhem, they have before a show, after a show, throughout the month. And I think the industry has reached a maturity. There are people who can charge, a model today charges me more than I remember Madhu Sapre charging me 5,000 rupees my first show. Today, if I even want to, get, let's say Lisa to walk the runway, it's straight away $120,000, $130,000. So multiply that with 70 shows in one fashion week, and you see the kind of lucracy. There is tremendous value in the system. It's not just a hobby anymore.
It's become a hardcore profession.
Yes, in the next 5 years, you don't want to know what's coming.
So many fashion weeks happening everywhere, competing with each other, some designers with some fashion weeks. Is it healthy for the industry, or it's a given you have to live with?
I think the more noise you make, the industry grows. Yes, I think the selection and the choices people make where to show their collection and they represent their brands is a very important decision. So if you tie yourself up with something which is mediocre, your brand is going to get tarnished. So it's a decision that the designers take according to the business models, but more the merrier. I think it might be a joke at the end of it, but people know which the big ones are, where the revenues are. So I don't see this is going to. I think there'll be more fashion weeks coming up.
Let's say if there's some aspiring fashion designers sitting in the audience, your message to them has to be what they should be ready for, what to do, what not to do.
Well, I think fashion is out of fashion right now. I really think design is really in, and design really does not need you to be a fashion designer or a designer by virtue of what profession you are in. Whatever you're pursuing, you need to be sensitive to the use of materials. If you drink water out of a bottle like this and throw it off, I think you're not in fashion. I think that's the big thing, is that how you interact with materials. What are the telltale signs of where the next trend is coming? I think the idea is not to really look at the world as is. I think you need to get involved, because this is the future that we'll be standing on. So we've moved away from fashion in our company. We don't do fashion only. Fashion is 30% of what we do. We're designing cigarette boxes for ITC. We're designing labels for whiskey companies. We have software products on the iTunes store. So it's a very diverse range of products we're doing, which are related to design.
And if someone from the audience wants to pursue the modeling field, is it what newspapers tell you, the couch, the homosexuality, all these things, something all exist, all part of the system?
Well, you see, you sort of tend to bring this onto yourself. If you're good, you don't need to do any of this stuff. But if you feel that you lack something and you still want to do it, then there are various roads that one is. The choices are made by individuals. So I think if you cast yourself into that position, you will land up. And this is not only on fashion; it happens in every profession. My strong recommendation would be get yourself. If you expose yourself, people will see what you look like and they'll get in touch. it's always better to go to the system through a filter. If you directly call a designer and say that you would like to work, I don't think it will be a very successful angle to take. I think you have to make yourself a bit more scarce.
So basically what you're saying is that you have to market yourselves well, and if you're average, then the ideal thing is not to go for modeling or for designing or for fashion, because then you will be exploited because you're average. And
I think so. I think you've hit it on the nail. That, you know, everybody thinks they're beautiful. Everybody. And I think the problem lies is that there is a sense of appeal that people have, that people see from the other end. If somebody sees Amir Khan, if I saw Amir, not through the movie, and I saw him on a runway, I wouldn't think twice because his height would not justify it. But his character makes him very valuable. So I think it's really what you are. So you're not looking at statistics. You're not looking at body size. You're looking at intelligence. You're looking at how you carry yourself and where you position yourself. If you do a photo shoot for a magazine that's read by 1 million people, I don't think that's good positioning. I would not use a model who's gone and done a photo shoot for a very mass medium, because the value of what they bring to the brand is also tarnished.
Now shifting gears again, coming back to Rajasthan. I mean, Rajasthan has such a great heritage, culture, monuments, food, clothes. What is it that you feel that Rajasthan should do differently? I mean, our tourist sector is doing great, but still not what Paris is or what Bali or other tourist places do in terms of footfall. What is it that we should do?
Well, I think I'm helpless to say. I think there's very little individuals can do. You can design better hotels and you can do all that stuff, but I think the system needs to be looked at. The complete system, the tax structures and everything else, which are really, I mean, it's cheaper to go to Thailand from New York than to come to India. But in terms of value, one needs to realize that I think the future is very bright. I mean, the future is very, very bright for India. With China going down now, with the whole bubble bursting there, you're going to get 3 years of dynamism that if somebody can utilize. So to create value in your product, if your hotel, which is fully run by solar and has a design like the hotel in Jaipur, I'm told, is going to be the #1 hotel in the world, which is just opened, Devi Ratan. That kind of twist on what the old hoteling, I think you'll see a lot of that coming in. That will bring the difference between hotels in Delhi or hotels in the south. We've had enough of selling palaces and the royalty angle. I think now you need to really get to the bottom of what are the deliverables, what are the values you get when you stay in a hotel like that, and also the confidence with which you service. I think the idea of service was invented in the servicing industry. Until you have something that goes with your character, it's very unlikely that a chain like the Taj or the Sheraton will pick you up and send you to the forefront of their best hotels until you have the value, which you can see the top people in the Taj right now are from Rajasthan, and that's because purely the value they bring to the table.
You said that Rajasthan is a very good place where you're welcome, you're taken care of. We are humble and docile, and we welcome our guests really. Has that helped as a tax for tourists?
I doubt it. I think that's just a marketing PR gimmick. I think, yes, aesthetics need to be looked into, but beyond that, I really think Rajasthan needs to offer a little bit more. Just staying in a hotel and going to the Amer Fort is not tourism, in my opinion.
Okay, and now going to your family, you get enough time to spend with your family, or?
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm actually live in a small village called Nadlai now. I'm literally parked there, so I work through the computer, and the whole company runs around on Wi-Fi because I'm far away from it. So I'm spending a lot of time.
Kids, what age are you?
7 and 3.
7 and 3. So that's the age that they need. I mean, you'd love to spend time with.
Absolutely.
Any instance in your life that you would like to, left you very happy, very ecstatic, something that you achieved and was much more than money in life, in your career?
Well, I think the acceptance of the product, when that happens, it's a great relief. Then the trial period is over. That you just have to sort of get onto the treadmill and get the company going. So I think the first time we sold over 1 lakh was an eye-opener for me. That by creating a design in your mind, you can actually bring revenue to the table. I think that's a great moment I remember. So.